Hello everyone, hopefully you're all doing well today whenever it is you're watching this video. My name is P.U.N.K, as some of you are aware, and today we're going to be covering my take on Virtual World P.U.N.K. Now, to first get the usual information in the introduction out of the way, we're going to talk about the video structure and the usual disclaimers regarding video content. In regards to the structure of the video, we're first going to talk about the deck list, and then we're going to talk about some combos regarding said deck list. Afterwards, we'll sum up the video with some overall conclusions I have on the deck, mainly my beliefs about its strengths and weaknesses, and what you can possibly change about the deck list to better suit your own preferences. Regarding the discussion of the deck itself, we'll talk about the main deck first, then the extra deck. The main deck, of course, consisting of the main deck monsters, main deck spells, and main deck traps. There won't be any side deck covered, and that's mainly so I can have more time in the video without making it too long for the combos that I have closer towards the end. The combos, there will be about 2 combos, and I'll be going first hand showcasing you how you can play this particular deck list, given that this deck list, unlike my previous video, does not have Cult Wing involved. Now, moving on to disclaimers, per usual, remember that this is my take on the list. That does not mean you necessarily have to play it. You might have deck choices that are different from mine's and or clash with mine's, and you're perfectly entitled to play those deck choices regardless of what I say here. At the end of the day, you are the duelist in charge of your own deck, and so you get to make the decisions on what you want to do, whether or not you want to listen to what I have to say, and so forth. That said, remember to like and subscribe. You can comment down below anything you caught in the video that you'd like to discuss. Of course, I'm always open to discuss the side deck in the description, given I didn't have any time to discuss it now. Otherwise, enjoy. Okay, so let's talk about the main deck monsters first for this particular deck list. To talk about the Virtual World part first, I'm playing 3 copies of Virtual World Chi-Chi, 3 copies of Virtual World Kirin Lily, 3 copies of Virtual World Nyan, 3 copies of Virtual World Mahime Lulu, and then 3 copies of Virtual World Roshi Lao. Now, these ratios are pretty standard, bar potentially Nyan. If you've ever seen a Virtual World deck, you'll see that these are all in 3 elves, and the main reason why is because they all do very similar things and they can all search each other. What I mean by this is these 4 names, excluding Nyan, they can summon themselves from hand by targeting a Virtual World card on the field and then dumping a virtual card. The effect that comes with that particular dump will depend on each card. This one will add a virtual monster from grave to hand at the end phase. This one will dump an additional virtual card. This one will search a virtual card with a different type than the one that you dumped and or targeted. And then Lao, this card will summon a virtual monster from grave. This is one of those decks where the more names you have in hand, the better it combos. Sort of like DDD in a sense, if you are familiar with the deck. So no reason to play less than 3 of each of these. And Lily and Lulu are the ones that are searchable off of Cupid Pitch. Even though Cupid Pitch can search these, again, more names equals stronger combos, and so I'm trying to max out on these. Nyan is the exception, as I mentioned. I'm playing 2. I know some people are playing 1. And the reason why I'm playing 2 is I like what it does for the deck. It's a pretty nice extender that can combo both off of your virtual cards and off of your P.U.N.K cards, since it can summon itself from grave by whenever a level 3 is no more special summon. Also, I like how it can recycle your banished virtual cards. That can be a very key effect in grind games, especially if for whatever reason Chukche is not established, and or if you lost Chukche to some disruption. So this is the virtual part. To now talk about the P.U.N.K part, which is potentially a bit more divisive per person, I'm playing 1 copy of Chiruri P.U.N.K Madam Spider, 2 copies of No P.U.N.K Z Amin, and 3 copies of No P.U.N.K Foxy Toon. To explain this, at least 1 copy of Madam Spider and at least 1 copy of Zeman are typically in most decks. The main reason why Zeman, of course, searches Foxy Toon and Madam Spider can search a trap even if you aren't playing the trap for whatever reason, Z-Min cannot search itself if you were to open, say, Italy or Foxy-Tune, so you need a different punk name to normal summon after you use the Z-Min from this free summon. The reason why I'm playing 2-3, or I guess 1-2-3, I'm prioritizing Foxy-Tune over Z-Min, and the reason why is because I like what Foxy-Tune does versus Z-Min. Z-Min, you have to commit your normal summon in order to sort of access your punk engine, and in the event that gets disrupted, it's sort of hard to recover because even though it's possible you could open Virtual World Gate Kowloon, or sorry, Virtual World City Kowloon, Virtual World Gate Qinglong, you aren't guaranteed to open a target for your virtual monsters to summon themselves off of. Meanwhile, with Foxy-Tune, if this card gets disrupted, let's say you get hit by Gamma, you get hit by Ash, you lose Foxy-Tune for sure. However, you still have your normal summon in those scenarios, so you can then normal summon one of the level 3 virtual bodies if you don't have Kowloon or Qinglong, and continue comboing from there. So essentially, I like opening with Foxy-Tune versus Z-Min because it sort of waives your normal summon until you actually get to the Z-Min part, in which case then you do have to commit your normal summon to Madam Spider and do Hal combos. Of course, I'm open to debate this. Again, if you want to talk about this, we can always talk about this in the comments below. I'm happy to have a constructive conversation. Now, this is Virtual World part, this is the Punk part. To wrap this up with the non-Punk and or virtual cards, we are playing 3 copies of Ghost Ogre and the 1 copy of Despot 001. If you recall from the introduction, I'm not playing Cult Wing. I know my previous videos and or previous combos videos have mentioned Cult Wing as a sort of potential catalyst to combos in this deck. However, not only is Cult Wing a very, very bad brick to open, it also it isn't necessary to do your combos, as you will see later. Despot 001 is more than enough to do what you need to do, basically making Cupid Picks, making Chi or Choo Choo, and then being able to summon your virtual cards by targeting the Choo Choo. 3 Ghost Ogre, I believe this hand trap is pretty strong in this format, and so this is my choice for the hand trap spot. I'm not playing more hand traps, and the reason why is because this is a primarily going first deck, and so I'd rather commit more of my deck space to going first, making sure I can confirm those strong going first end boards, rather than having all this extra space in my hand for going second cards that may not necessarily let me play the going first hand I want to play. Of course, as I'll discuss at the very end of the video, there might be certain spots in this list, both here and in the spells and traps, that you can cut for more hand traps and or more going second cards. However, for now, this is the way I have it laid out. So now let's move on to the spells and traps. Okay, so let's talk about the spells now, as well as the trap cards. To discuss spells first, we are playing 3 copies of Virtual World Gate Qinglong, 3 copies of Virtual World City Kowloon, 3 copies of Emergency Teleport, and then the 3 copies of Triple Tactics Talents. To go left to right to explain all these cards, we're playing 3 Qinglong and 3 Kowloon because these are absolutely essential for Virtual World. Regarding Qinglong, as previously alluded to, this is one of the targets you can dump off of your Virtual World names in order to search another Virtual World name. Even if you do open this card in hand, you can at least activate it to your field and have it as a target for your Virtual World monsters to summon themselves off of when playing Lesson 3. Of course, the lesser talked about effect being the first effect, you can always use this as a pseudo chalice / droplets to bait out your opponent's disruptions on board, given that it can banish a virtual card from grave to negate a face-up card in the field. So yes, crucial to play. Kowloon also crucial to play. This lets you activate your Virtual World spells and traps from deck, and again, those activated spells and traps can then serve as a target for your virtual monsters to summon themselves off of. Primarily what you'll see is you probably see Kowloon activating Chukche from deck, and then you can target Chukche. You'll see this potentially in the combos later. But yeah, the other effect, the one where the more gates you have, the more benefits you get off of this card. Not too relevant. I haven't seen it gone off at all really, but it could come up. Regardless, 3/3, no less than each. 3 emergency teleport. Majority of your deck is level 3 psychic monsters. Being able to summon Zia Min to get access to your P.U.N.K combos and thus your Halqifibrax and Aurodon combos is pretty crucial. Also, being able to get virtual names on the field, again, per these two cards, giving another body on field to target for your virtual monsters to summon themselves off of. We see an overall trend here, essentially just ensuring your consistency, ensuring your combos. Finally, with the 3 triple tactics talents, the reason why I'm not playing a different spell, potentially say droplets or crossout, I think this deck actually benefits off of talents pretty well. Essentially, as said earlier, the more virtual names you have in hand, the easier it is to combo. And so this enables you to do that, especially in cases where you might get sort of disrupted. For example, let's say your P.U.N.K combo gets disrupted. This can draw you into more virtual names to combo off of, and or key cards such as like Kowloon to actually allow you to start your hands, especially if you don't have anything else to already target. So you could always, of course, get hand trapped, then talents can either draw 2 to get more names in hand, etc., or rip a card from your opponent's hand if the rest of your hand is already good enough. So overall, I defend for this card to be in virtual deck lists. Of course, actually no, I was gonna tell you what replacements we could have for this card, but we'll talk about that later. Now for the trap cards, we're playing 1 copy of Virtual Gate Xuanwu, 2 copies of Virtual Gate Xuche, and 1 copy of Churi P.U.N.K Dangerous Gabu. Now, with Xuanwu and Xuche, again, sort of typical to virtual deck lists. Sometimes you might see 3 Xuche, but I don't believe that's super necessary as of right now. With Xuanwu, this is an extender for the deck. Lets you summon virtual monsters from grave, and then you discard a card. So it can definitely be beneficial in cases where you need to further your plays, of course, and or if you're trying to go for game going second. First effect isn't too relevant, but it could potentially come up. Xuche is absolutely relevant for this deck. It's one of the ways you can outgrind your opponent, given that it recycles names from the banished zone to pop a face-up card in the field. Also, its level modulation effect can come up in situations where you need to have that extra level 6 body or have that extra level 9 body for whatever reason to make XYZs and or synchro monsters. You could bump this up to 3 as I had said a bit earlier, but since we're not playing anything that would threaten essentially your copies, for example desires or something, I think 2 is fine for now. Of course, that might be up for debate, in which case again, you can talk about this in the comments below. Finally, Dangerous Gabu. Given that we're playing Spider, this seems a bit sort of telegraphed. It's a nice trap card that serves as an additional disruption for your deck. Of course, you don't have to necessarily play it. I know it does seem a little bit weird to summon Spider and not search anything off of Spider. However, if you don't play this, of course, it gives you more space for other choices, and I'll talk more about this later. That said, this is the spell and trap list for my particular deck list. Let's get on to the extra deck. Okay, let's talk about the extra deck. So we're playing 1 copy of Invoke Kaliga, 1 copy of Crystalline Halqifibrax, 1 copy of Mecha Phantom Beast Aurodon, 1 copy of Beatrice Lady of the Eternal, 1 copy of Constellar Ptolemy M7, 1 copy of Zeus, 1 copy of Cupid Pitch, 1 copy of Virtual World Beast Choo Choo, 1 copy of Muddy Mud Dragon, 1 copy of Ultimaya Tezolkin, 1 copy of Coral Dragon, 1 copy of Stardust Charge Warrior, 1 copy of Virtual World Kyubi Shenshen, 1 copy of Vermilion Dragon Mech, and finally 1 copy of Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. To go from top to bottom, left to right, Invoke Kaliga, I have to admit I am a sucker for this card and for the Mud Dragon combo. I know Some people might disagree with me, but I do like having Kaliga there as a strong floodgate against your opponent, because there are cases where you can establish Kaliga plus Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon plus Shen Shen, and that can be very difficult for your opponent to beat over, especially if you have Chukche live for whatever reason. Because in that case, they can only activate one monster effect. The Crystal Wing can negate that one monster effect. You have the Macrocosmos live, and then you can pop whatever cards you need with the Chukche. So really a strong board, and I'd highly suggest looking into it if you're interested. Now, with Halqifibrax and Aurodon, I don't need to say too much about these. They are your main link monsters to combo with the P.U.N.K engine. Beatrice and Ptolemy M7 with Beatrice. In most cases, I typically use this for going like game 2 and game 3. You can dump Token Collector from side deck. You can dump Necro World Banshee to activate Zombie World from deck. And there's some other options such as dumping Snow and so forth. I know I'm not playing any of these options in the main deck. You could play them if you want, but yeah, mainly there for later. With Constellar Ptolemy M7, it's a pretty good out to certain boards. Also, it's pretty good going first as a tool to recover your resources, especially when you may not have Chi in circulation to do so. Zeus is Zeus, to say the least. You can always summon it off of either of these XYZs, and of course it's very threatening to your opponent. I don't really know what else to say about that. It's just Zeus. Halqifibrax, also sort of self-explanatory. It's part of the Halq Aurodon combo, and it will search Lily and or Lulu. With Virtual Beast Chuju, going second is pretty nice. There's sometimes cases where you summon this thing and your opponent can't out it, and it's pretty funny. But going first, this is the body you make using Halqifibrax and a token once Halqifibrax is level 3. And after you search your Lulu or Chi-Chi, you can, or sorry, not Chi-Chi, Lily, you can then target the Chushu and do your virtual combos. So definitely crucial. Yeah. Muddy Mount Dragon, again, I'm a sucker for the Invoke Kaliga combo. You could always change this later on, aside with Kaliga. You could play something else like more Synchro Monsters, Crocodile Dragon. You could replace Kaliga with, say, Dragoon, etc. Just some ideas. Tzolk'in, main way for you to summon out Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, and most virtual lists play this. Tzolk'in's also one of your prime ways to play around Nibiru. You'll see there are some Virtual World hands, excluding the P.U.N.K engine, where you can make this on 4, and then the Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon comes out on 5, and that prevents Nibiru from activating, more or less. Coral Dragon and Stardust Charge Warrior, a lot of times you'll be able to make these, and they help you continue accruing the necessary resources in hand, not only to discard off of your gates, but also to further your plays and or grab those cards that can stop your opponent. I know Ghost Ogre is the only one in my case, but you might be playing more hand traps in your version, in which case these can help get you to them. Shen Shen, absolute staple in Virtual World. Being a Macrocosmos that is easily summonable with the main engine. Also the fact that it can resummon itself from grave on subsequent turns to the turn it was sent to grave. Absolutely a beast of a card. With Vermilion Dragon Mech, this is sort of a... It's interesting. You might have seen this in previous Virtual World Decklist, and it's a pretty good tech, or I guess tool, going second. Also, there are very weird scenarios that come up. One, you can grab Lulu from Banish to further your plays in certain scenarios. For example, if you don't have the correct name in hand. Also, there are scenarios where I'm familiar with them because I've been playing against some Ignister lists, but Ignister can make the towers, and so what you can weirdly do is you can activate Vermilion Dragon Mech, negate it with Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, make Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon bigger than the 4K towers and beat over it. To summarize all of what I just said, I know that was a bit of a lot of random tangents, but pretty good card going second, has some niche uses and being able to grab back some of your tuner monsters, and then it has some interactions that can help out certain monsters that you otherwise wouldn't be able to out. And finally, Crystal Wing. This is the monster you summon off of Ultimate Tzolk'in. Not much to say there. It might seem weird to some of you that are new to the deck why you're playing this if Tzolk'in is the only way you can summon it. However, Tzolk'in is pretty easy to summon, and thus this is also summonable pretty easily by default. So this is the extra deck, and now we'll get to combos. Okay, let's finally get to some test hands for the deck so you can sort of see how it functions in reality. Now, if you haven't watched my last test hand video, it was about 2 weeks ago, and it concerned the pure deck list I had posted a week prior to that. I must warn you that my placement of cards throughout the combos will be a little bit weird. As you can sort of see, the camera doesn't reach the entirety of the mat in all of its zones. Thus, I will shift cards around and or put them in places ajar from where they should be, just so that you can see them all as you watch. So we're going to draw 2 test hands. The first test hand will be right now, second test hand will be in a later cut, and we'll go from there. So 5 cards in hand, reveal the hand, Tactics, Chi-Chi, Nyan, Lao, and Kowloon. So this isn't going to have the P.U.N.K combo in it, but this is good for learning the virtual part of the deck, since there will be hands where you only open virtual cards just like this. And there are a lot of things you can do to help you play around certain, let's say, hand traps and so forth. So here what we want to do is we want to play around Nibiru. Even if it's game 1, you never know when you get hit by the rock. So let's play around it by activating Kowloon first. Kowloon will then activate Shukshay from deck. What we can then do from here, again, we're trying to keep everything under 5 summons if possible. So we can then activate either the Chi-Chi or the Lao. We're trying to make Tzolk'in on 4 and Crystal on 5. And we do need Lulu in grave or hand to sort of do that. What we can do is we can activate the Chi-Chi, target the Shukshay, dump a copy of Qinglong. Don't forget Chi-Chi's effect during end phase. And we do want to search ourselves a copy of Lulu if possible. So we'll activate the Qinglong here, banish it, search Lulu, and then we're going to discard, say, the Nyan. I think the unfortunate thing here is, despite what I was saying, I do not think this hand actually does play through Nibiru, with the exception of using the Lao. So if we want to play around Nibiru, what you can do is you can activate the Lao, target the Chi-Chi. You can then send a copy of, Send a copy of Virtual Shukshay from grave, or from deck to grave. You can then activate the effect of Shukshay, we still need to resolve Lao to summon back Nyan. So this is the 3rd summon. You can then activate the Shukshay here, banish itself, make either the Chi-Chi or Nyan level 6. Ideally we do Nyan so we can have it in grave for Lulu trigger. We'll then send these two to graveyard, summon the copy of Tzolk'in to the EMZ and or to one of these zones, set the tactics, and then we will summon Crystal Wing on 5. Now, as you can see, this makes things sort of awkward. Usually you want to save Lala for later, but this at least ensures that you play around Nibiru. And if your opponent has any other hand traps, you do have the tactics still set. You can activate it, discard a card from the hand, or continue drawing. Assuming the situation still occurs, let's try to continue comboing. Of course, we haven't used Lulu yet, and we haven't used Lily yet, so a good idea here is to try and search the Lily to summon itself. We can activate Lulu, target the Shukshay, dump a copy of Qinglong. I like to dump another copy of Qinglong. I know you can also dump a Kowloon if you want to get rid of it from the deck. Nonetheless, this helps you set up for next turn. Let me put this into frame. So since we sent a spell, we can search a monster. We'll search a copy of Lily. Since that was all one effect, we can trigger the Nyan if we want. I think we will trigger it here since we won't have any other situations to trigger it off of. And then from here, we can activate Lily. Activate Lily, target, I want to get Xuanwu in grave ideally, even though we can't necessarily activate it right now. So we'll dump a copy of Xuanwu, or we're going to target one of the monsters, dump a copy of Xuanwu, and then send, let's say, a Nyan. Mainly because this Nyan will be banished. So having another Nyan grave, again, helps you for following turns. Now, variety of things you can do here, but the one thing I see is this is Shen plus Kaliga. How we're going to do this is we're going to go these two into Mud Dragon. You want to do this first prior to making Shen, and the reason why is because if you recall, we do need to resolve Chi effect, and ideally Chi grabs Lulu, but if you make Shen first, Lulu would be banished when you Synchro Summon. So we make Mud Dragon first, we can then make the Shen, 9 would be banished. I know you can't see everything, I apologize for that, but the general idea is still there. You're going to make the Shen now. Of course, you could fusion summon first, but like 99% situations, you don't need these in graveyard. So I'm going to summon Shen first. We can then fusion summon these two. Notice I didn't activate the 9 effect. You don't necessarily need to activate it since you have Chukshe, and having the extra body banish helps Chukshe be live for multiple turns. Anyhow, go Mud Dragon, go to Silken, into Kaliga, and then from here, end phase, add back the Lulu. So overall, not a bad board if you think about it. We have Chukshe live, we have Kaliga as a monster floodgate, we have Crystal Wing to negate the one monster effect, as I had mentioned during the extra deck explanation, and then we have a Macrocosmos floodgate as well, with Lulu in hand for follow-up. So this is, in terms of just the virtual world part of the deck, a pretty solid end board. Not only did we play around Nibiru, but we have a sufficient board to stop our opponent, we have good follow-up, and in the case your opponent had hand trapped you, you could tap Lince and draw 2 for something of use and or rip a card from their hand. So overall, pretty solid end board, pretty solid way to get there. Let's see if our next test hand will yield us the Punk engine. Okay, so now test hand 2, shuffle real quickly and then put the deck to the side. Draw 5. Okay, and reveal. Okay, so you can see here we do in fact have access to the Punk engine, and we do have another name in hand, which does help bolster our virtual world combos. So from here, we're going to normal summon the Z Amin, activate Z Amin's effect, grab a copy of Foxy Tune, wherever it is. It's always in the front, I swear. Whenever you're like looking for a card, it's always in the front, I swear. So then you can, from here, activate Foxy Tune. Between these 4 cards, I'm probably going to discard the Chukshe. Reason why is because it has benefits to us in form of level modulation. Meanwhile, these 2 can be used for subsequent turns. Also, given the hand, I should mention, whenever you open a virtual world hand plus the Punk engine, you can usually activate Chukshe from deck, which is why I'm not trying to keep this in hand since I know I'll have it later. So discard the Chukshe. We're then going to summon the copy of Madame Spider from deck, use Madame Spider's effect, grab Dangerous Gabu. At this point, we've lost 1200, so keep that in mind in case you are low on life points for whatever reason it be. You can then synchro summon, or not synchro summon, sorry, link summon Halqifibrax or Auroradon. Same thing as last time, we're going to summon out the Despot 001, or I guess not same as last time, sorry, I'm thinking of my combo video, but make Halq, summon out the 001, go these 2 into the Auroradon. Auroradon, in fact, will summon 3 tokens. That will trigger Despot 001 from grave, summon itself back. You can go 1 token plus Despot 001. This is a level 4 synchro summon, Cupid Pitch. Cupid Pitch will modulate its level to level 3. You can go Cupid Pitch plus a level 3 token straight into Virtual World Beast Choo-Choo. That will trigger the Cupid Pitch effect to grab the virtual world part of this deck in the form of Lulu. I guess you could alternatively grab Lily, because Lily does let you search the Lulu. However, here I will prioritize the Lulu. And you'll see why soon. So we have a token and we have Choo-Choo. We're going to activate Lulu, target the Choo-Choo, summon itself from hand. Lulu will then, as part of its effect, dump a trap, search a spell. I want to search the Kowloon, which is why I'm dumping Jolyne here. We want to save the last Chukshe, remember that. We'll search our copy of Kowloon. We can then activate the Kowloon, set a, or not set, I keep saying set, but activate the Chukshe from deck. Now from here, there are multiple things you can do. You can go into the Coral Dragon and or Stardust Charge Warrior early. You can summon the Chi-Chi early. What I'm going to do, since at this point we're typically beyond the point of hand traps, I'm going to keep the board sort of open so that if I think of anything on the way there, I can sort of change things up. Meanwhile, if you commit too early, of course you're stuck there. I know that's not the best mindset and or thought process. Nonetheless, for a combo in a vacuum like this, and since I'm doing this on the spot, I'll do this instead. So we'll activate Chi-Chi, target the Chukshe, dump a copy of Qinglong, and then don't forget the end phase effect, kind of like last time. You want to add a virtual card from grave to, or from deck to hand at the end, or sorry, graveyard to hand at the end of the turn. Here, I kind of want to preserve all three of these cards, so I will make a monster that can draw a card to discard off the Qinglong. Alternatively, if you feel like any of these cards are dead, you can just activate the Qinglong now. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Lulu plus the token into a copy of Coral Dragon. I'm going to make this Tzolk'in now to sort of clear up some zones. Going to this token over here. Then we're going to trigger Coral Dragon effect, draw one card. Let me shuffle real quick, draw a card. Yeah, see, now we have an extra card we can discard. We're going to activate the effect of Virtual World Qinglong, banish itself from grave. We're then going to search a copy of Virtual World Roshi Laolao, pretty good extender. Activate the Laolao here. We're going to target the Chukshe. We're going to dump Nyan. And then we're going to summon back Lulu. If I recall, you're not allowed to summon the Nyan back after this resolves, which is why I'm not summoning it back right away. From here, what you can do, two different things you can do, per se. You can go into... actually, there's quite a few things you can do here. And let me do it this way. Oh, I forgot to discard the Qinglong, sorry. So we're going to go Chi-Chi plus Lulu into the Stardust Charge Warrior. Actually, wait, that doesn't sound right. Because again, I'm trying to establish the same exact board as before. You can go these two into Shen Shen. You can then summon back the Chi-Chi if you wanted to make the Mud Dragon, make Kaliga again. I'm just trying to see if there's any way to conserve resources. Of course, I don't think there is right now, per se. So what I will do then, as a result, we can just go these two into a Mud Dragon. We can go... Also, I want to apologize if this looks a bit scuffed. I'm still practicing the combos, but this is hopefully giving you a general sense of what the deck can do at the very least, even though some of you might be thinking, wow, these combos look garbage. So we're going to activate the Jolyne now. You can discard, say, the other tactics, summon back the Chi-Chi. You can trigger the 9 if you want, but there won't be any way to utilize it. If you do want to trigger it, I guess you could go for a variety of different things. You can go into Shen Shen, and then here you could make another level 9. If you're playing Hot Red, that would be nice, but I'm not, which is why I wouldn't summon it here. I know, a little bit weird, but hey, it does still get us to the board I'd like to achieve. So we can go these two into the Shen Shen. We can go set the Gabu, trigger Tzolk'in, make Crystal, and then go these two back into the Kaliga over here. I guess if we want to play Random Mechanites, we can do it like this. Oops. And then end phase, we will grab back the copy of Lulu. So I know there were some discrepancies throughout the combo. Again, I apologize for that. It's just on the spot. But you can sort of see same strong end board as the last combo, even though the last combo did have no punk cards in hand. I guess the difference here is you do have an additional negate and you have an additional card in hand, whereas the previous combo didn't. So overall, not too shabby, not too bad. Hopefully this gives you an overview of the deck. Now we're going to go to the last minute comments before we conclude the video. Okay, so now as you gaze upon this beautiful deck list, and after having digested all the information I presented to you in terms of the deck profile and test hands, I want to offer you some commentary on what I think about the deck, as well as things you can potentially cut from this list for other cards. Now, I'm actually going to go that latter part first and then the former part second. Cards you could cut, for me, the way I see it, you could probably cut a copy of Zeman if you wanted to, and or rearrange the Punk engine in a fashion to favor more decklist spots. That's really up to you. You could also cut down on a copy of 9 if you wanted. Main reason behind this is, given that you already have a normal summon in the form of Zeman, you don't necessarily need to see 9 in hand too much, given that you can already dump it through a variety of ways in the form of all of these Virtual World names and all of the Virtual World spells and traps. Aside from that, you could also potentially cut down on tactics if you don't have any, and or if you don't believe. My ideology that tactics is good for this deck for more hand traps. Same goes for the previous ones as well. If you cut down on any of those other cards, you can always put in more hand traps. You can put in more going second cards like droplets. You can put in cross out if you're afraid of hand traps, etc., etc. For the extra deck, I do feel like the majority of these are set in stone. The exceptions here are probably the Fusion package as well as Vermilion Dragon Mech. I do feel like everything else in here is pretty standard for the deck. Regarding Kaliga, Mudragon, and Vermilion, you can always take these out for Synchro Monsters and or XYZs that you believe elevate the deck to a certain extent. For example, I know some people are playing Virtual World Jaja, and the reason why is because you can make that going second with the Punk engine, attack into your opponent's monster, and then make Zeus. So that's an option. You could also cut Kaliga and make, or put in Hot Red Archfiend Dragon Abyss, I think that's its name. If you recall, during Test Hand 2, I was capable of making that card, however, I couldn't make it because it wasn't in my extra deck. Nonetheless, if you do play it in your deck, it is a nice way to play around Dark Ruler no more. You could also play Crocodile Dragon in place of these two cards. You could play another rank 6 like Fan, or you could play more rank 3s like Breaksword, etc., etc. The list goes on, and really that should show you the versatility of this deck. Virtual World has at its heart always been sort of this sort of toolbox-esque deck with a lot of good resource management and resource gain. So really, you can decide how you want to play it based on your meta calls. Now, in regards to Punk Virtual World and what I think about the deck, I do think it is nice. In the past, if you've looked at Virtual World, it is a very strong deck. The only issue with that is that sometimes it can struggle to do its combo, since sometimes you open very clunky hands where you don't open a virtual name and or a Virtual World card to summon your bodies off of. Here, what the Punk engine ends up achieving for your deck is that it gives you that sort of coherent piece on the board from which you can combo off Virtual World. It also, of course, searches a lot of virtual cards to get your engine going in those cases where you might otherwise not have been able to search those cards. That said, in terms of weaknesses, even though I did mention that Virtual World on its own can have problems of consistency, it can feel stronger in certain senses. For example, if you recall Test Hand 1, we were able to play around Nibiru. Meanwhile, with the Punk variant, you can't really do that. So, in a sense, you're sort of sacrificing some of the resilience of the deck in trade for more consistency, which is a fair trade offer. Nonetheless, it might not be the best in some scenarios. Nonetheless, this is among the rest of the other Punk variants, definitely one of the better Punk variants you can be playing. So, all of that said, do I think you should pick up the deck? I think you can. It's a pretty cheap deck, as you can see, bar Halq, bar Oradon, but everything else could be under, let's say, 100, depending on what rarity you get and so forth. And if you cut certain cards like Tactics for replacements. So, all of this said, I think that's the only set of comments I have for the deck itself. To summarize the video, hopefully you enjoyed the deck profile, hopefully you enjoyed the test hands. Remember to like and subscribe, it really helps me grow as a channel, and I do appreciate it being able to interact with all of you and to see the support for this channel as it grows, to support Punk not only now, but in the future when it becomes stronger with Difo, aka Dimension Force. Now, yeah, feel free to comment below if you'd like, anything you enjoyed about the video, anything you'd prefer I change about the deck list and or these videos. Otherwise, I'll cue the outro.